States are sitting on gold mine, but many states are spoiled children. They come to Abuja with begging bowl that leaks. Let me tell you, states in Nigeria on the aggregate have a chance of generating over 20 trillion naira additional revenue, untouched revenue. I've seen one of the governors said, oh, if the government signs 62,000 is unsustainable. I dare challenge the person. It is mental laziness to think that you cannot pay 62,000.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, on Wednesday, June 12th, hinted that the 250,000 naira minimum wage demanded by Labour could lead to mass retrenchment of workers and jeopardize the welfare of Nigerians. It has been approximately 5 years since the 30,000 naira minimum wage was implemented. The Nigerian government has paid the 30,000 naira minimum wage since April 2019. Meanwhile, the National Assembly earnings budget has been reviewed and increased every year since 2020 till date, a 168.75% increase from 2020 to 2024. Yet, the Nigerian worker has been made to survive on 30,000 naira minimum wage for 5 years, despite the consistent hike in the cost of living. Some states like Abia, Adamawa, Bayelsa, and Zamfara states never paid the 30,000 naira minimum wage, not even once, until it expired in April 2024, despite the Minimum Wage Act of 2019 signed by former President Muhammad Buhari, which mandates governors to ensure that all employers in their states pay a national minimum wage of not less than 30,000 naira per month to every worker under their establishment.
Since the creation of Zamfara State, there was nothing like a minimum wage. People, as at last month, were still earning 7,000 naira salaries. It's just now that we implemented even the 30,000.
Since the Tinubu-led administration took office in 2023, they have introduced some sweeping reforms that have further increased the hardships for citizens. In response to the mounting inflationary pressure, the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, and the Trade Union Congress, TUC, initially gave them 1 month's notice, which expired May 31st. They subsequently organized industrial action across the country after negotiation over their suggested 617,000 naira reached a stalemate. That the current wage of 30,000 naira is no longer sufficient to meet the needs of the average Nigerian worker is a fact that both organized labor and government agree on. In the meantime, the House of Reps saw fit to increase judicial officers' salaries by 300%. They themselves enjoy robust take-home pay and allowances, yet they ignore the clarion call to make the same concession for civil servants.
It's enough. Enough is enough, please. Let them go, let the Senate, let them put their salary on this minimum wage too, and let's see what will happen.
A former treasurer of the NLC and current chairman of the Medical and Health Workers Union of Nigeria, Bambo Sepeti, has said that in a bid for the Senate to understand the plights of the labor unions, they should put their salaries on the minimum wage. Speaking in an interview with TVC News on Saturday, Reverend Father Ejike Mbaka said governors, senators, and members of the House of Representatives should also earn the 62,000 naira minimum wage. After all, they are public servants.
Think of it. If we decide to give labor people 60,000 naira,
62,000 now.
62,000 naira, why not generalize it to House Assembly members, to senatorial members, to House of Reps members, to our governors? All of them are civil servants, are they not?
Yeah.
So if all of them are civil servants, why are these people slaves? Have they come to serve who? Because we cannot imagine why somebody can be amassing billions and billions and billions, sitting allowance, newspaper allowance, wardrobe allowances, vehicle allowances, and what they call suffering allowances or what?
Sovereign wealth. fund.
suffering allowances. So the people that should have such allowance should be the poor masses in the villages. If a teacher, how much are they being paid for those who are grooming our children for us? How much are they being paid? Our nurses, how much are they being paid? Our doctors, how much are they being paid? Let us be realistic.
The new minimum wage for Nigerian workers has been a contentious issue with various opinions and arguments from different stakeholders. While many Nigerians, civil society organizations and labor unions advocate for an increase in the national minimum wage, some Nigerians have argued that it is indeed not sustainable by the government, given the current fiscal realities of the country. Before stepping down on labor's demands to 250,000 naira for the national minimum wage, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, had set the sum of 494,000 naira national minimum wage being demanded by organized labor, which cumulatively amounts to the sum of 9.5 trillion naira, is capable of destabilizing the economy and jeopardizing the welfare of over 200 million Nigerians. In an interview with Roots TV, Paul Alaje, an economist, throws more light on the implications of the new minimum wage demands.
I've seen one of the governors said, oh, if the government signs 62,000 is unsustainable. I dare challenge the person. It is mental laziness to think that you cannot pay 62,000 in this time and age because of the economic reality of today. So what should we be doing? Should we be paying? The answer is yes. How much is enough? We look at history. Over the years, minimum wage in Nigeria has never been less than $100. Now, when you look at it, for someone to live above poverty line or to escape extreme poverty, not to even live above, to escape extreme poverty, the new figure today by the World Bank, you have to earn at least $2.15. It used to be $1.90. Now $2.15. To escape that trap, how much is that? Use 1,500. The fair exchange rate for today. How much would that be? That would be over 90,000. So are you saying that we want to be known as an economy that is paying people to be within the poverty bracket? I saw some governors saying that, oh, it has their implication. The question is, what is the functional number of civil service? How many people are really working in civil service? And if you have made the private sector, you have created economic environment, people will not be afraid to exit public sector for private sector. So you see, economy works hand in hand. You cannot deal with one issue in isolation. We need a total overhaul of the system. So if you want to look at what we should really do, it should be around 120, 150. But because of the impact on inflation, and when you pay that money, it doesn't mean to not have impact on inflation. It will certainly have impact on inflation. Inflation will go high. But now that we have not paid minimum wage, what is inflation? 33.69%.
The government is suggesting, given this hyperinflation, that 60,000, 62,000 naira is what will be paid to this as minimum wage. Meaning that what they want us to believe is that at 10,000 naira a month on these items, it will make sense to the minimum wage earner. I think government is not being realistic in this regard. There is no way 60,000 can meet the needs of anybody, even at the lowest level of existence. 60,000 naira cannot do that in present-day Nigeria. I think that government should be very realistic, should be very concerned about the welfare of its people, should ask itself deep questions, make the necessary sacrifices that can uplift the lives of the people. What is it that they need to do is to ask, how can these civil servants manage their lives given the realities that we have on ground? For me, I believe that for these 6 items that I've just listed, that a minimum of 50,000 naira even though it might not be adequate, but it will at least give the wage earner some flexibility to say, okay, I can cut down on this, I can do this, I can do that, in order to make ends meet. The adjustments will now come from the worker after he has been paid at least a minimum of 300,000 naira. 300,000 naira will ensure that he will be spending an average of 50,000 on each of these 6 items that I have listed. I think with that, we would all know that government has made sufficient commitment and sacrifice for the people. Government has done so much for themselves. I don't want to go into that regard. But one of the things I believe that we must let them know is that we can no longer stand and watch them feed fat on the pulse of this nation. They have done so for so long, and then now they are asking us to still tighten our belts so that they can continue feeding fat.
Some Nigerians have also questioned if civil servants need to demonstrate sufficient productivity and efficiency to justify a demand for a minimum wage increase. They have also asked what steps are being implemented to improve the productivity and performance of the civil service, and how can the government and labor unions work together to ensure that any wage increases are tied to measurable improvements in service delivery and efficiency. Ambassador Ozo Nwobu, a retired senior civil servant at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, responds to this criticism.
Is it the civil servants that are responsible for the numerous hours lost due to power outages in the offices? Is it the civil servants that are responsible for the lack of work tools? Is it the civil servants that are responsible for even their inability to transport themselves to office on a daily basis? I think that is just a tip of some of the questions that we need to ask government. But the big elephant in the room really is that of the enthronement of corruption, favoritism, cronyism, and most importantly, the lack of accountability in our system. Those are the things that have eroded confidence and the morale of the civil servants and reduced their capacity to produce to the barest minimum.
While some private sector operators have expressed concerns about their ability to pay the proposed minimum wage, citing numerous taxes and levies, high inflation, forex scarcity, and other challenges.
Affected ones, medium-scale organization and large-scale organization. Can they afford it? Yes. You know why? Their prices has gone up. It has gone up. In fact, some are already paying more than some banks. The first time government removes subsidy, they increase payment. They can afford it.
But is it enough for the labor unions to focus on the increase of the minimum wage? Aisha Yusufu has this to say.
The civil servants need to understand their power and need to understand their value. The trade union has not only failed itself and themselves, but they failed the nation. The trade union is supposed to be very powerful. So we have trade union, professional bodies, student union. All of these have failed themselves and the nation. What we now have is that our trade union, TUC, NLC, all the labor unions and whatever, they're just focused on minimum wage. They don't focus on good governance. They don't focus on accountability. They don't focus on transparency. I mean, lawmakers were buying falling cars for themselves, hundreds of millions, billions for themselves. The trade union didn't say anything. They kept quiet. We saw a budget come out, and there was 190-something million naira budgeted for one borehole, 180-something for street lights, which is so outrageous, and yet the labor union didn't say anything. So they have reduced of themselves. They have allowed themselves to be taken over by the executive.
While the labor unions have expressed disappointment with the proposed wage, The government and the private sector have reached a consensus on a wage that is higher than the current minimum wage. This was revealed in a statement from the Tripartite Committee on Minimum Wage. However, the government and labor unions can work together to implement reforms that improve the productivity and performance of the civil service. This can include measures such as performance-based pay, training and development programs, and the introduction of new technologies to enhance efficiency. Additionally, the government can work with labor unions to establish clear performance metrics and benchmarks for civil servants, so that wage increases can be tied to measurable improvements in the civil service. You can join the conversation in the comment section. Thank you for watching.